Hey everyone, Tony Mello, Mello Properties team. Hope you're doing well. Cell phones 508-369-9755. For the folks that don't know, the National Association of Realtors and MLSs and real estate people in general, different groups and brokerages and that kind of thing, have been in courts lately, and it's been based on compensation. I'm not going to go into the entire thing. I've got other videos that started to go into that. It's basically who gets compensated, when they get compensated, how do they get compensated. I will explain right now how it basically works, and it may change, and in my opinion, it's going to make it worse for everybody. Right now, a listing agent, a real estate agent, goes to a person's home that wants to sell a house and does whatever it is that they do. They ask about the house, they figure out what the price of the house should be, might be, and somewhere in that conversation, they discuss what they're going to charge the seller. Right now, the way it works is once they agree on that percentage of the sales price, that listing agent, that agent that's working for the sellers, is required to take a portion of that commission, um, percentage of the sales price, and share that with the buyer agent. We almost in every single case, 99.999% of the time, we split that commission in half. So, for example, if you're the seller and I'm the agent looking to help you sell your house, and I say, listen, it's a 6%, you agree that it's a 6%. 99.9% of the time, it's going to be 3% to myself and 3% to the buyer agent. We do that for a specific reason. It goes to some of the brokerages, or one of the brokerage that we previously were with. And the frame of thinking is that if you're fair with other people, they will be fair with you. If they perceive you as a fair agent and compensate people evenly, it will, over time at least, get it to the point where they trust you as a real estate agent. You'll make more business that way. All right, so that is kind of how it works now. Listing agent, seller, I'd like to do a 6%. Here's the reason why. Do you agree? Yes. Bang. All right. It doesn't have to be 6%. It could be 5%. It could be 4%. It's negotiated. So the listing agent has to present why that they are charging that percentage. And again, it's negotiated and it's agreed at that level. Right now, it's divided in some form or fashion. That is going to change. That way of compensation is going to change, which is going to create, again, some problems. And I'm not going to go crazy into that. I've got some other videos that do that. So I've got an email here that came in today from MLS Pen, which is the multiple listing service, the database of properties that agents are all putting their information into, and the ones that they're all viewing what's available in this area is that particular database, MLS Pen company. They're going to change. I guess they were in a lawsuit as well. Everybody's in a lawsuit these days. The whole real estate industry is losing their minds over this. They got sued. They're settling out. The National Association of Realtors is doing their own thing. They're settling out. Would have been nice if they just stuck to their guns and not settled out. Because honestly, I don't agree with any of what they're doing or why they're doing it. They are going to make it difficult for everyone. The people that are suing on behalf of sellers. The sellers that are suing right now, they could care less what happens into the future. They just want, if they can get money right now, that they're going to go for whatever money, and then who cares about the future? That's basically, it's got to be what their intent is. It will hurt future sellers because it's going to hurt future buyers. And every time you hurt a buyer, reduce the amount of buyers on the market, it is going to affect the prices of homes. Who knows? Maybe the powers to be, that is what they're intending on doing. They're going to do it one way or the other. They want to bring the prices of homes down. And this is the way that they're going to do it. They're going to reduce the amount of buyers that qualify for loans. Because honestly, there's not going to be agents that are going to work for free. So So what they're proposing is, and I'm going to read this email. What they're proposing is that that scenario that I had just talked about, where the listing agent shares in some form or fashion some percentage that listing commission that he or she negotiated early on to pay the both agents, the listing agent and the buyer agent. They are now proposing that, and it's not required to do it, but they're now allowing it. So you can do it any which way you want. It's going to be up to listing agents to educate their sellers. I was in the middle of writing an email to some sellers that we're working with right now, but I figured I'd do this video first before I do that, and then maybe copy a link of this to that email so that they can look at it. Um, you can offer no compensation for the buyer agent as the listing agent or as the seller. So if the seller specifically instructs the listing agent to not offer any compensation to the buyer agent, then they're allowed to do that. The problem with that is the buyer agent cannot work for free and is now going to have to get that compensation that they would have gotten from the buyer. So now the buyer is going to have to come up with closing costs, down payment, and a commission. Somehow, these lawyers and judges and whoever's starting all these lawsuits is under the impression that it's going to create competition. And honestly, I don't see how it's going to. All it's going to do is reduce the quality of the buyer agents, or reduce, in our case, the offerings. Here's what I am going to get paid, and here is what I'm offering. You're going to go do your own showings. You're going to go, when a home inspector comes in, don't expect me to be there. If I have to be there, I'll open up the door, let you do your thing, and then take off. I'm going to spend as little time as possible if that is going to be the case. And we're going to go from say, for example, a percentage of the sale to a flat fee of $100. I'm being ridiculous, but we have to be careful how we do what we're doing here. So, all right, so let's read the MLS pen email, and then I'll do the best I can to kind of add to that. Dear MLS Pin subscriber, person that's paying them to get access to their database. As you are probably aware, MLS Pin and the plaintiffs in the Nozalek class action lawsuit have reached a proposed settlement. If approved by the court, the proposed settlement will result in several changes in MLS Pin's rules and regulations regarding compensation offers to cooperating brokers. Cooperating brokers is the buyer broker. They're cooperating with the listing agent. As you are also probably aware, the National Association of Realtors has reached its own proposed settlement with private party plaintiffs in two separate lawsuits. Like our settlement, the proposed NAR settlement has not yet received final court approval, so we're waiting for final court approval before those changes go into effect. With any luck, they never get to that court approval, and nothing changes. We will proceed with caution. We will proceed with the way things are now until this changes and there is a court approval to make those changes. And then at that point in time, we'll have to cross that bridge and have those discussions. As I read on here, you'll see that they're recommending that we make it known to people what is going on, and what they're, at least for sure, once the court does approve, then you definitely have to disclose, how this is all working. I'm going to do it in advance, even before then, not to confuse the matter, but to let people know what is going on. Um, and it is what it is. After careful review, MLS Pen has chosen not to join the proposed NAR settlement, whatever. Instead, the MLS Pen has decided to move forward with its own proposed settlement with the Nozalek plaintiffs. Even though MLS Pen rules changes presented as part of the settlement in Boston are still awaiting final court approval, MLS Pen has decided to start implementing those rule changes now, because they probably figure that it's going to go It's going to happen no matter what. So they're making those changes, or at least stop working on trying to make the changes. Effective immediately, we can, we can, listing agent can accept listings, sellers can, listings of properties for sale without offers of cooperative compensation. So you can set up a listing where when you go down to the buyer's agent compensation, it shows zero, and I've already seen that. I showed a listing, I think it was yesterday, for a 40B property, and the cooperating compensation was zero. So I went and showed. I didn't explain the scenario to the person. They decided after looking at it that they weren't entirely interested in it. It had some issues. There was a ton of people there because it was priced under what it really should be, which is part of what a 40B is. So I'm not sure if they're going to move forward with that or not. If they do, then I'll have to cross that bridge and discuss with them how I'm getting paid, um, or help them as much as I can, and then just let it go and not do the listing, not help them buy that property. Where were we? And cooperating broker from negotiating. We would I'll remind all subscribers that MLS PIN's rules and regulations have never prohibited the seller, the buyer, the listing broker, and the cooperating broker from negotiating and mutually agreeing upon any compensation that differs from the value in MLS PIN. Right. And I've done it before, not in recent history because things have changed so heavily towards the sellers and not the buyers. But there was a time 3, 4, 5, 6 years ago when we sent in an offer. It went in with we are the buyer is requesting and making part of this offer that the listing agent split their commission evenly. Just because we split our even commissionly doesn't mean that they all did. Some would offer 2% and keep 3%, or offer 2% and keep 2.5%. They would get more money. And that was and still is their option to do that. We at that time put that verbiage in with the offer with the permission of the buyers after explaining it, and we would send that in. So it basically wasn't us as the buyer agent saying, "I want half of whatever it is that you agreed." It was the buyer, and again, they had the power at that time to do that. It was the buyer that was saying, "Listen, listing agent, I want my broker, my agent that is helping me buy a home and representing me. I want them to get a fair deal, and this is part of my offer. You either accept it or you don't." Used to work back then, doesn't now. If I did that with offers, none of my buyers would get anything because it's so heavily leaning in the other direction. It's changing a little bit, but nowhere near as much as it needs to be what it was 4, 5, 6, 7 years ago, pre-COVID. Soon, we will roll out additional changes set forth in the proposed settlement. First and foremost, importantly, offers of compensation, if any, will be made by the seller, which it was anyways. They were the principals of the transaction. It's in the agency agreement as far as what the total listing commission is going to be, and of that, what that percentage was going to be that went to the buyer agent. So none of this was hidden. Um, I don't know. They're making it look as if, and I don't see how they can because it was black and white in paper, that somehow it was a hidden thing. And I've had people come to me saying, "Oh, you guys can't ask for 6% anymore." And I had to go through the whole thing of who was asking for 6%. It's 6% if they ask for it. It's 5% if they ask for it or agree to it. Sometimes it was 4%. So it's all based on. There was never a fixed commission, is what it is. Prices of homes are going up, so the prices of commissions should go down. Okay. Based on what? Who's doing more work? Who's doing less work? What happens when the prices of homes go down? Should we be pushing those commission percentages up when in a down market, or is it just in one direction? Listing brokers and cooperating brokers will no longer split commissions. Yeah, they will, just like they always did, unless no commissions are offered from the beginning. they have a issue with a whole listing broker breaking up a commission and giving it to a co-broker. So they're presenting this as if, and again, it was always that way anyways. It's the seller that is it's the seller that is offering the compensation. It's in the agreement, and they're agreeing to how it's going to be broken up. Why does the seller care about how it's being broken up? Well, think of it this way: if you have a listing, right, and let's say it's a 6%, and for me, I would say, all right, 3%, 3%. When the buyer agent finds out that I'm splitting things evenly, that person is happier. That person works harder to get the listing sold. Who does that help? It helps the listing agent, helps the buyer agent, helps the buyer, and it helps who? It helps the seller, right? So if they find out that I was keeping 5% of a 6% total and giving only 1% to the buyer agent, and the buyer agent has access to that, they know what they're getting paid before they get into it. And the buyer agent says, forget that. They're not supposed to do this, but obviously, human nature, they're going to do this. Forget this. Why would I let that person get 5% and me get 1%? I'm going to do a certain amount of work at least. Where I can that house over there is just as good. They like it just as much. I'm going to show them that house, and if they happen to take that and get their offer accepted, I'll be making more money over there. That does not help the seller. So again, different markets, different situations. Some listing agents are explaining everything. Some of them are not. Same thing on the buyer side. It can get complicated, but it doesn't have to be complicated. It just requires sitting down, talking about how does it work today? What are the possible scenarios? Why is this scenario bad? Why is this scenario good? Does it make a difference based on today's market? So there's a bunch of stuff you have to, at some level. It's a a person, business, a business interacting with people. You have to sit down with people and discuss it with them. You have to kind of go, all right, here's the avenues, here's the scenarios, and here's the good and the bad. You decide. Ultimately, it's the principles of the transaction, the seller and the buyer that are making the decisions. It's up to the agents to explain the good and the bad, and letting the sellers and buyers make their own decisions like they have been. The listing broker must disclose this to the seller before the seller signs the listing agreement. Okay, so since this said effective immediately, this is going to go along with the email to our current sellers, or to be soon to be sellers, so that they understand that if they decide to do the 0% commission, that is their right. However, be careful and understand what the ramifications of that is. Um, it may well reduce the amount of buyers and the time on the, it'll increase the time on market, reduce the buyers, and our job is to try to make things as comfortable as possible for people, to sell things for as much money as possible when you're on the listing side, for as little headache as possible. This may well introduce headache. So if you're okay with introducing headache and you understand it, I may come up with some forms. If they don't, come up with some forms explaining this better or more, or maybe not, just listing this and having them sign it, both the sellers, and there's going to be a form for the buyers explaining what it is that is happening and that they agree to it, that then they understand it, so that when we're in a transaction and a seller comes back and says, why is this taking 2 months? Why is this taking 3 months? What's going on? You you decided, after I explained, that you were not going to offer compensation to the buyers. Why is the house down the street sold in 30 days? Take a look at it. Did they offer compensation to the buyer agent? Oh, yes, they did. That's why. So, not to be long winded, if you have any questions, let me know, and I will explain this so that you can understand it. There may, like I said, very well be forms that are going to be developed through the brokerage, through Trident Realty Group, specifically disclosing this, because I see this as a headache coming. So we're going to explain it. We're going to put this in bold, as few words as possible, so it's easy to understand. large text, underlined, everything that we can to make sure that it's disclosed and people understand. And there may be even a possible ramifications section here so that people go, okay, this is what they're saying and this is the possible ramifications. I agree to it. And then when something goes sideways, we explained it. We can change it if you want to change it, but this is why we're doing what we're doing and how we're doing it. And this is the effects that we're having because of the decisions that we made early on. Third, if a seller elects to offer compensation, again, that is the right. They're not saying that you cannot offer compensation. We agree with that. The listing agreement must also say that the cooperating broker will be an intended third party beneficiary of the agreement with the right to enforce the same. Jibba jabba, nothing's different there. They're an intended third party. They're the party that represents the buyer, the buyer. Finally, before posting a listing, the listing broker must certify in a checkbox designated for this purpose in Pinergy that it has notified the seller of the seller's rights to not offer compensation and not to accede to a cooperating broker's request for compensation. Okie dokie. It'll be a form to have to cover this foolishness and how it's all being done. Again, some people, it's possible that some people are trying to do things to protect people, but the people that are making these decisions right now in the court system and creating problems, they should have some exposure to the industry to understand. They should have to have had worked already in the industry to fully, not just on paper, understand and know, but to know to be part of the work and know what it is that's what's going to happen. MLS Pen will implement the proposed changes to our MLS system Pinergy that differ from NAR's settlement as soon as possible, and we will keep you apprised of this timeline. In the meantime, the update that MLS Pin can accept property listings for sale without offers of cooperating compensation is now in effect. And again, I saw that a couple days ago, yesterday, 2 days ago, where that listing offered nothing. Okay, it's going to have to come from the buyers. Where else can it come from? Maybe you can roll it into your mortgage. Maybe you can't. Maybe the lower people, not lower people, but the people that are struggling, the people that are have less money stored, have less ability to buy, it's going to be bumping those people off of the list of eligible buyers, forcing them to go back rent. What else can they do? If they're borderline to begin with, and they have to come up with the closing costs, down payments, and now a commission, or if banks start doing this and they start rolling in the commission um, into the mortgage, that means you're going to buy less house. So you're basically you're dumping a percentage, 1%, 2%, 3%, 4% out of what you had previously for as money for money to buy a house is now going into paying the professional that is helping you to help keep you safe in a transaction. It's a mess. And again, how people don't understand this, don't know it, or can't foresee the ramifications unless they want those ramifications to happen, is something that I can't understand. We recognize that education and training will be necessary to incorporate the above mentioned changes. When updates are officially made to Pinergy, we will provide further communication video timelines and details in the following weeks. Please watch for more information directly, blah, 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 blah. All right. Going forward, Trident Realty Group, Mellow Properties team, if we are working with buyers, we will be looking at the cooperating compensation. If there is something there that approaches something reasonable, normal, 2%, 2.5%, something like that, the buyers are not responsible for anything. If there is something less than that, 1%, half a percent, or nothing, that is going to trigger a conversation between us and the buyer, where the buyer will have to come up with that cooperating compensation. If they cannot do that, then we cannot help. From that point forward, they've got two options: stop looking or go directly to the listing agent. Problem with that is if you go directly to the listing agent is only liable. They're not required to take care of you. Their fiduciary duties are to the sellers. So if you say something to that agent that hurts your position, they are required to tell that to the sellers. This is what this is all going into. It's weakening the protection of buyers and increasing the possibility of game playing. I'm going to call it that, game playing, that listing agents will be doing. And in some cases, because they're responsible to do as much as they possibly can for the sellers, they're that's what they kind of have to do, is do whatever they need to do, as long as it's not horribly against the law. um, they will take advantage of buyers and do what they've got to do to get the sellers as much money as possible. If I were on the listing side, and we are on listing sides in certain scenarios, that is what we're going to have to do. So we're going to have to tread carefully with on both sides of the equation here. Buyers are going to get hurt. Because buyers are going to get hurt, some of them are going to drop off. It's going to reduce the amount of buyers. It's going to reduce the prices of homes, which is eventually later on, months, year, 2 years down the line, going to hurt sellers and reduce the prices of homes. And we're going pretty heavily in this direction. So it's no longer something that is a news story. It is something that is scaring these people enough. NAR, MLS Pen, other MLS companies across the country, to take action like this. Once we have the ability to offer no compensation to the buyer's agent, people will use it. And are they explaining the ramifications of that decision to their sellers? Maybe, maybe not. I know we, as within our brokerage, we will have, not only will we be explaining it verbally, but we're going to be putting it down on paper and having the principals, whether we were working for the buyer or working for the seller, we're going to have those folks sign that document stating that they read and understood what it is that they were signing, like all the other documents. And if they don't understand it, then maybe it's time to get a real estate lawyer involved, which is the normal verbiage for all the other documents as well, whether it be an offer or PNS or anything else. Here's what we're talking about. Do you understand it? Do you agree with it? If you don't understand it, even after the broker or the agent is explaining it to you, then maybe you should go to a lawyer. Will a lawyer explain it any better or different than the agent or the broker? Probably not. I mean, an apple is an apple, right? If I say it's an apple and a lawyer says it's an apple, what is it? It's an apple. Um, but who knows? Maybe different people saying it differently will help. Is what it is. I've created the video. They are making these changes. As of right now, the only change, and there will be more, the biggest change will be that sellers have the ability to offer nothing to the buyer agent. And in that condition, again, just be aware that it is going to make a difference in the time that a property comes off the market, on the price of properties, and the greater market in general. Any questions? Let me know. I babbled. I read it. If there any of this confuses you, or if I didn't explain it well enough, and you want to have a one-on-one conversation on what this is and what's going on and why it's going on, and what the future scenario situations might be, let me know and we'll have a conversation. I can tell you that if this goes forward and it hurts buyers, which it will, there will be less buyers on the market and there will be more renters. So, for the folks, clients that are investors that are buying investment property, tenement homes, apartments, this will be a good thing for you because the percentage of buyers are going to reduce and the percentage of renters are going to increase possibly dramatically, where it is going to be a nightmare. We don't do rentals anymore. We've had enough of all of that. Um, but we do help investor clients buy apartment buildings. So something to keep in mind. There's changes in the wind here, and it looks like they're intending to follow through with all this changing stuff. Questions, comments, call me, and we will uh, add to whatever it is I just said. See ya. Tony Mello, Mello Properties team, 508 369 9755. See ya.